So your water board has just told you that you're not going to have running water for a week. What's your plan? Do you have a plan? In this video, we're going to talk about ways of sourcing water when there's none coming through your taps. Hi, this is Everyday Prepper. Welcome to the channel. Now, I wanted to bring up some situation that's been reported in the news about South Africa. And so, what's your thoughts? South Africa, a third world country, or Western society? When you look at Johannesburg, or Joburg, otherwise known as the City of Gold, it's in the wealthiest part of the whole of South Africa, very affluent part of the country. So imagine my surprise when there's reports, even last year as well, of the electricity grid not being able to handle the pumping stations, and therefore water drying up at the taps, quite literally. And apparently they're now in a crisis this year. Literally as we speak, it's been reported that people are going without water or going without water and electricity pretty much for the most of the day. Sometimes it's coming on again at night, so they can actually turn the lights on at night. Some of these articles they go on to say that if this carries on, they're talking about either a total grid collapse, or even a societal collapse, societal breakdown, or societal unrest. Now, that's pretty much the scenario that a lot of us preppers prep for and hope that never happens. And the fact this is happening in a very affluent area of the world is now, I know they've got all sorts of geopolitical problems they have had over the years, over the decades. There's been they're very different from a UK point of view. Looking at this, they're very different from the UK. They've got a lot of corruption, I should say a lot more corruption than we have in the UK. A lot of their police system is very corrupt, as is ours, but not on a scale as they have in South Africa. But we are hearing a lot more discussion, certainly around the world, of infrastructure being very weak and being overloaded by heavy rainfall and climate change. They're saying is part to do with it. The infrastructure can't cope with this change. They can't cope with increasing populations or increasing demand on the electricity networks and the grid. Then you've got this green agenda, which in my opinion is unrealistic, because the infrastructure is just not there to manage more and more focus on actually using electricity as we move away from other ways of generating power. So talking about modern Western society and problems with infrastructure, what about Kent in the UK? Third world. Well, some of it's a little bit third world. This is just down my road, but every neighbourhood has one, I'm sure. But you generally think Garden of England, modern Western society. And again, we've had a complete breakdown in the water supply and problems with sewage and water treatment, just untreated water being pumped into the sea around the southeast coast. This heavy rainfall that we've been experiencing has also affected the ability for these water companies to actually manage these dated infrastructures and supply water properly to thousands and thousands of people have been without water around Kent and beyond, near Essex I think as well, South London, without water for a long time. So, whatever the cause, it seems to be happening more and for longer periods of time. So, as a prepper, it would surely make sense to at least know how to, as well as having some water supplies stored and some food stored, it would also make sense to just have some skills in the background to know how you would source water and how, once it's all run out, how you might be able to source water from the environment or from other sources. So of course, hopefully you'll have some stored. You'll have at least 1 gallon per day per person, or per person per day put away, and but there's only there's a limited amount of storage that we have. Food's easier to store than water. And I'll touch on this in a minute as well. When these water companies do have problems, they do supply bottled water, and they also have I believe they set up standpipes. The kind of hydrants that fire engines use. They set up with a standpipe where you can get water pretty close to home. You don't have to go too far. And also you can pick up bottled water at various pickup points. But there has been also news of bottled water being stolen from people's driveways, and you really want to be queuing up. So best to have a bit of a backup, I would have thought. I'll come back to that in a sec. So talking about skills and knowledge, knowing where the water will maybe remain in your house. So when the taps go off, Do you have, what depends on what type of boiler you have, if you have central heating at all. So if you have a central heating system and you don't have a combi boiler, if you have a combi boiler, there will be some water in the pipes, but not a great deal. So if you have a standard heater boiler, then you should have a storage tank, a hot water storage tank, and you'll have a cold water storage tank, usually in the loft. Now that cold water storage tank, mine takes about 200 litres, which works out about 40 odd gallons. So, for a family of 4, we're looking at about 10 days worth of water once I've gone through all my other supplies, any other spare water around the house. You'd also have water remaining in the taps. So if you have a 2-storey building and you put the cold tap on down in the kitchen, you're going to drain, gravity will just open it up, and you'll have the rest of that water pouring down. So there will be a little bit left in the pipes even after the mains has gone off. And you can try it, turn your stopcock off, test it out, and your water will run for a little while because you've got all of that volume of water in the taps. If you have a garden, then rain barrels, really good idea, using rain barrels to store water coming off your roof, redirect it from your drainage. And but you wouldn't necessarily want to drink that. Ideally, you want to drink your stored water or the safer water that's still lingering around the house. But use your barreled water for washing, so that you're not using up your stored water, drinking water supplies. For the squeamish among you, you can still use the water in your toilet cistern. The cistern, obviously, that's the top bit that you flush through. That's fresh water coming in there, as long as it's reasonably clean. I mean, I'll still boil it anyway, probably. Don't use the water in your pan, obviously. Another thing you could do as well, you can get hold of these water bob things. They're like big bags, refillable bags that you can put inside your bath, so that if the power was to go down, or if your water company was to suggest that, sometimes they give you some notice, because a lot of the time that water's been cut off in the UK is that they do know about it, because they've got to do some repairs and they have to shut off whole neighbourhoods for quite some time, but they do give you some notice. So if you are notified, or if you have no electricity for maybe a couple of days and you haven't been told a date when it's coming back on, then the next thing to go is going to be the pumping stations. So then there will be a water problem. Now, obviously, you'll probably still have some supplies, but you can fill up the bath, fill up your kettle, fill up some various bottles you have around the house. And these things that you put in your bath, they take about 100 up to 100 gallons, is my understanding. So it's quite a bit, lasts you quite a while. But obviously you can't use your bath. Now, with a much longer term problem, I think going back to South Africa, they've had last summer they were extremely dry down there. They just could not find the water. The water levels in the water table were so low, but they still didn't declare a drought at the end of the day. So I think things would have to get really, really desperate. But there are droughts around the world, and there are areas that really struggle to get any kind of water. And if that was to happen in the UK, you're going to have to start looking elsewhere, because you eventually will use up your water. The body needs water. We're 70% water, apparently. And you can only go for a couple of days without water before you're on death's door, really. So very important. So I would say, absolutely have a way of boiling water, because, if the power goes off, a lot of houses have these induction hobs powered by electricity. If you have no electricity, I've got a gas hob, luckily still, but, when they start pumping hydrogen through the gas pipes, I won't be able to use my gas hob. So always have a backup, and I've got bottled gas heating. I've also got a wood-burning stove, so there's various ways of boiling water. So always have something portable, or something you can just kind of tuck away that you could use to boil some water. Even an electric element that you can plug into the car. You can do that sort of thing, where you can heat up a cup of coffee. Anything to be able to make water drinkable. So if you're collecting rainwater, for instance, if the weatherman says there's going to be a centimetre of rain, then they're usually lying. I don't trust the weather. But anyway, if there was going to be about a centimetre of rain, you could stick a bucket out, or you could use a tarp to collect water. Now, when you work it out, a standard kind of builder's bucket, you've got about probably 20 centimetres at the bottom there, and the area would be enough to give you, if you've got 1 centimetre of rain, that means 1 centimetre everywhere. So you're going to get 1 centimetre in the bottom of the bucket, would work out about half a litre of water. If you had a tarp with 1 metre squared, that's 10,000 cubic centimetres with the 1 centimetre of rain, and that would give you 10 litres. So, 10 litres or half a litre is much more efficient to collect on a big surface area. So you can do it from your roof, but you're going to have contaminants. So I always have a brand new clean tarp tucked away that I've dedicated to use for rainwater collection. So you would just, pin it open in the rain and then angle it down towards a bucket or some kind of clean container, and you're going to get a hell of a lot more water quickly. So that's assuming it's going to rain. If we're in a long-term period of no rain, then you've got a problem. So going on from that, you can use various methods around a solar still. The solar still will attract water from the environment or from the atmosphere. The one I'm picturing here is where you put a bag over some foliage. I've just put it over my privet hedge because generally plants will transpirate, I believe, expirate water out during the day. So if you put a bag over there, you're going to collect it, and you can see here that it's condensed on the inner of the bag. Overnight that will cool down and that should trickle down into a few drips, but you're not going to get a lot of water. It takes a long time. It's not a very efficient way. You'd have to be absolutely desperate really to be relying on a method like this. I suppose at the end of the day you just rather than wait for it to condense, you just rip the bag open and start licking. But it's not ideal. And again, there could be contaminants on the leaves, so from birds being in the bush. So you might want to boil the water as well, just to make sure there's no parasites in there. I think from any source it makes sense to just boil the water. It doesn't take long. Boil it for 1 minute at 1 to 2 minutes. Now, if this is the first time you're visiting this channel, then my name is Steve. I make videos about prepping from a UK perspective and some outdoor stuff. I'll also test out some various techniques and skills that are associated with prepping. I try and keep things realistic and pretty much down to earth. That's the idea. And if I test out any skills and they don't work for me for any reason, then I'll show you. I won't just make it up and make it all rosy. But if you do like this discussion so far, then please like and subscribe so that you can get more content like this. So on that note, I also want to be realistic about this. Although we've had reports of droughts around the world, we've got climate change, we've got extremely heavy rainfall, which is actually wrecking infrastructure and making it hard for them to get the water from wherever they get it from into the taps. And we're seeing more and more of this, even in Western modern societies. What I haven't seen yet really is people actually perishing of dehydration. So with all of that, plus the war-torn countries like Syria, Ukraine, Gaza, and everything else that's going on around the world, we're still not seeing, although we are seeing diseases running rife where there's contaminants getting into the water, sewage coming up into the streets as well. What we're not seeing though is, although we are seeing people being hungry, we're not seeing people perishing in their masses because of lack of water. Now, when you think of it as the hierarchy of needs, and you can only survive 3 days without water, you'd think that with water problems the way there have been, there would be a lot more people perishing because of that, but it doesn't seem to be happening. So water's getting around somewhere. And so when I say I want to be realistic, certainly in the UK, I can't really foresee an imminent, situation where there's going to be a water company who's going to say, I'm really sorry, but there is no water. That's it. We can't provide you any bottled water or anything like this. They have contingencies. They do have stuff like that in place. So they would be able to get water to you, albeit you might have to queue up with a lot of irritable people, probably. It's not ideal, but you're going to survive. It's going to be okay. So all I'm saying is, let's be real about it. However, from a prepping point of view, what are we prepping for? Well, we prep for the basics. So we prep for water. We have some food stored. We have some various skills tucked away, and just in case we really do need it, and anything to make our life a bit more comfortable if it was disrupted. That's the whole idea as far as I'm concerned. So coming up, I will be doing some more videos on the basics of prepping. We want to keep it as simple as possible, really, while I grow the channel. And on that point, we've surpassed 1,500 subscribers, which is absolutely fantastic. I only started last November, so the channel's, as far as I'm concerned, it's growing pretty quickly. I'm just amazed at the pool of knowledge and experience among all of you who watch the channel. So I appreciate your input, appreciate your comments. As I said, we'll be doing some live streams soon as well, just so I can engage with you a bit more. I've got a live stream coming up with UK Urban Prepper, which you may have seen on my community post, I think it was. Yeah, he's going to sit and ask me a few questions, so that'll be really interesting. Hopefully it'll all go nice and smoothly. And of course, in the meantime, I really appreciate you watching, and stay prepared.